So ladies and gentlemen, the big item that we need to get to before I can give you a chance to be a little bit more intelligent today is we are in the middle of the undeclared war, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to figure out basically is what do we do? Thomas Jefferson ideally really wants to do what?
Help France.
Help fix the, I mean, in fact, he would actually like to honor the Treaty of Alliance, but he is siding on the side of France. And of course, what is Hamilton's main issue, or what would he like? What is he pushing for?
Maybe friends with England.
And in order to do that, what do we need to do?
Not be friends with France.
So he wants,
War with France.
folks, the big problem right now is we have an undeclared war. It's not a joke. America and France are fighting, but there was no official declaration. It was kind of just what is referred to as a quasi-war. Hamilton hated that because we do not receive the benefit from the English. We are still legally neutral. That leads us to the next item. Have we talked about the Convention of 1800?
No.
Okay. This is the reference of Napoleon, so that's what we were talking about there. In the Convention of 1800, Napoleon Bonaparte invites the United States to send representatives. So Napoleon comes in, and basically Napoleon is a smart guy that says, you know what, this fighting with England is doing us no good. Napoleon believes that even if America is neutral, it's much better than America being an enemy. So Napoleon asked the United States to come over. John Adams does this because this could allow Adams to do what? He avoided war. He was right. Hamilton was wrong. We did not need to go to war. We send negotiators. And ladies and gentlemen, the negotiation is this simple. The solution is literally they rip up the Treaty of Alliance. The reason France is mad is they believe this treaty bound America to France. By ripping up the treaty, acknowledges that America could be neutral. France can no longer say America has a commitment. So the Treaty of Alliance is destroyed. For those of you who like being clever and smart, what happens next is literally cool. According to the Constitution, the president makes treaties. Everybody okay with that? The approval of treaties is a specific issue, a checks and balance of the Senate. Everybody okay? Here is, folks, this is, and again, for those of you who do not find this cool, you have to look at how people react, how people deal with stuff. This is what makes things life. The Senate is primarily Federalist. Federalists generally take their ideas from who? Hamilton. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1800, Alexander Hamilton convinces, encourages, begs the United States Senate to reject the Convention of 1800. Alexander Hamilton does not want the convention. He does not want to end the conflict. Alexander Hamilton believes that if we reject the convention, we are in the year 1800, he can still force Adams to make what decision? War. Because if you don't go to war, you couldn't fix the problem, you're weak, and America is vulnerable. Does everybody understand the situation? The Convention of 1800 appears to be an accomplishment for Adams. The problem is, in order for the accomplishment to come to fruition, the Senate must say, okay. Hamilton puts his emphasis on rejecting the convention because that would continue the undeclared war. Hamilton could continue to attack Adams and build towards what he really wants. At this moment, John Adams, a man who is generally not regarded as a dynamic president, goes before the United States Senate, and John Adams says, Senators, sign it, or I resign.
If he resigns, Jefferson takes power.
Folks, this is an unbelievable ploy or an unbelievable show of strength or frustration. John Adams is basically saying, I'm sick and tired of this crap. I'm sick and tired of Hamilton trying to run his agenda. Fine. Either you sign this, it's a good deal, or I quit. And if I quit, you're not getting what you want because Jefferson is the president. And let's be honest, does Jefferson want to sign the Convention of 1800? What is it he wants? Honor the treaty. Thomas Jefferson, if he's president, would argue we have to do what? Support France. It is a brilliant, I mean, it's dangerous. He is literally putting his career at stake. And the United States Senate is like, crap. And they sign it. For John Adams, of course, what can he say? I was right. Hamilton was wrong. I prevented war. Neutrality was the better option. For Adams, it is an accomplishment. For Hamilton, he would still argue Adams is a fool. The next one is, again, important, important, holy crap important. It's not big. The next item is called the Alien and Sedition Act. Ladies and gentlemen, the Alien Act has 4 parts. Okay? You need to know 2 things. Very quickly, here's what it is. Under the Alien Act, 1, there's the Naturalization Act. Somebody get their hand up. What is naturalization? What is naturalization? Ladies and gentlemen, in the year 1800, we passed a law that changed how do you become an American. We changed it from 5 years to 14. Is that looked to be good or bad for immigrants? Aliens are immigrants. If you are in America and you are not a citizen, you are an alien. Law number 2, Alien Enemies Act. The president can expel any alien. An alien is an immigrant, right? At a time of war. Folks, in a war, what aliens would you expel? The people you are fighting with. So in a war like World War I, we'd expel Germans, correct? This makes sense. The only problem is it says we have to be at
War.
The next one is called the Alien Friends Act. Does everybody see the difference between the 2 laws? Alien enemy, alien friends. In the Alien Friends, the president can expel any alien who is a threat to America. Notice the difference. In the Alien Friends Act, if the president is told that this man is against America, if this man is threatening America, he can expel you as being a danger. Again, what is the difference between the 2 laws? One of them is a nation we are at war with. The other one would be any person that, again, these are not American citizens. We cannot expel Griff. He's an American. I'm assuming. Folks, what I need you to really do, remember I said there's 2 things you need to know about this law. Take those 3, combine them together, make the little alligator jaws, whatever you want. Does anybody know what is that called? Those 3 laws together, what is the word that summarizes that? Some people, in fact, there might be someone in this room who's this way. What is it called when Americans despise, fear, hate immigrants? The proper term historically is nativism. Sometimes there also can be something called xenophobia. But ladies and gentlemen, what we want to look at is I would use the term nativism. Nativism is the belief that America should be, for whatever an American is, you do not like foreigners. So like today, when people talk that is on our southern border, we want to keep Mexicans out. That is, by definition, a form of nativism. Native means I do not trust, I do not like foreigners. And the 4th law, I will make no mistake, the 4th law is the big one. The 4th law is the Sedition Act. Let's be honest, this is a word you do not hear very often. It is actually a very, very powerful word. It's a very dangerous word. And let's be honest, this is one of those words you never want connected to your name. Ladies and gentlemen, sedition is a crime against the country, the government, and let's be very clear. Now, my recommendation is I would sit and listen to Cleveland for a couple of seconds. Under the Sedition Act, it says it is a crime to impede the operation of law. Do you know what that means? If a policeman is running down the road chasing someone, you can't step in his way. Most of you would probably go, yeah, that makes sense. Number 2, it is a crime to provoke a riot. Does that make sense? Ladies and gentlemen, it is the 3rd part of the Sedition Act that is going to raise some flags. It is going to create some concern. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sedition Act. This is where I would have my pen. It is illegal to utter false, scandalous, or malicious criticism of the government Ladies and gentlemen, I am not lying. I am not kidding. Each and every one of you right now should be going, what? How? In 1800, our government passed a law that said it was illegal to utter, speak, say false, scandalous, or malicious criticism of the government. Question number one, why would the government do this? Ladies and gentlemen, the Sedition Act is a re-election. You cannot attack which candidates? Incumbent. Ladies and gentlemen, think about it. Under the Sedition Act, for example, if someone, like in the case, if Mr. Jefferson runs for president against Adams, can we attack Jefferson?
Yes.
Because he is attacking the current president. He is offering different ideas. Because Jefferson would be proposing something new, is he protected? No. The only person protected is the one that is actually represented by the current government, which would be the current president. So absolutely, this is a we're going to help John Adams get reelected law. And of course, the much bigger question in flat out, each and every one of you should already have this running through your head, because if you don't, you really are not in the class. Period. What's the problem? Ladies and gentlemen, this law completely ignores, disrespects, steps on, violates the First Amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sedition Act is an open, blatant. What did we say in the Bill of Rights? We said these rights were absolute. They're guaranteed. And now we have a law that says you have freedom of speech. You just can't say anything bad about the government. You just cannot criticize what our country is doing. It is a in-your-face attack. The problem with things like amendments is they don't mean anything unless they are enforced and followed. The problem is, and that is the issue of the Sedition Act, who is supposed to protect the First Amendment? Sure doesn't look like the president is, does it? Ladies and gentlemen, please write down Kentucky and Virginia resolution. Remember I said the Sedition Act is important. There's no doubt. You need to know it. It will be on the test. This is one of those items you need to know for, this really is one of those things that, okay, weapon. It is an attack on the Constitution. More importantly, off of the Sedition Act, we want to look at the argument, the fight. Jefferson and Madison will write what are called the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. Kentucky and Virginia. Jefferson writes Kentucky, Madison writes Virginia. Simple terms. The Kentucky and Virginia resolutions are open attacks on the Sedition Act. The Kentucky and Virginia resolution are going to be kind of what some of you are asking or saying. These are arguments that say the Sedition Act is wrong. The Sedition Act violates the First Amendment. This law goes against our rights. This law should not be legal. Judicial review will not exist until Marbury v. Madison in 1803. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the point that Madison and Jefferson are at. This clearly violates the law. There is no doubt. Adams isn't going to do anything because it helps him. Jefferson is barking and yelling and screaming. And finally, and here's the big item, Jefferson and Madison are angry, they're irate, they have no help because the judicial branch is worthless. The Congress wrote the stupid law because they also get protection, right? Because they're also running for re-election. So Thomas Jefferson and James Madison in the Kentucky and Virginia resolution, this is the big item. Big, huge, enormous. They come up with what is called nullification. Nullification. Oh, do not underestimate it. Remember the comment about judicial review? The problem is it hasn't been boring. Judicial review is the ability of the Supreme Court to look at and evaluate. That doesn't exist. Jefferson and Madison are so angry that they come up with a legal option. They come up with a way to protect the Constitution. Jefferson and Madison believe the Sedition Act is so outrageous that there must be someone to defend it. And if the federal government will not do its job, Jefferson and Madison proposed that states, in the case of a blatant violation of the Constitution, states could nullify. Ladies and gentlemen, nullification is judicial review at a state level. States would have the ability to look at a law and say it is void, it is illegal, it is no good. As you are writing this down, what are the items that should be going through your head? This is clearly about the First Amendment. This is about the Sedition Act. 2, Jefferson and Madison never, ever propose using it. They bring up nullification to show people how outrageous, how terrible the Sedition Act was. They are trying to give options of what we could do. Where is the problem? The Sedition Act is a horrible law. Did it deserve to be thrown out? Yes. Jefferson and Madison basically said if the federal government will not do and honor its promises, we need some other protection. Is everybody okay right now? Jefferson and Madison were smart enough to realize that nullification is an extremely dangerous weapon. Folks, the problem is we all want to think that people are good and moral and honest, correct? The problem with nullification is it gives the ability to interpret law to who? The states. Please understand, if a state throws out the Sedition Act, it would only be thrown out where? In your state. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem with Sedition Act is it completely undermines, remember the 6th article, the Supremacy Clause. Because anytime a state doesn't like anything, they could simply go nullification. We void it. I don't know if any one of you could argue the Sedition Act was a good law. I don't know if any one of you could argue the Sedition Act was good for America. The problem is other men are going to take nullification, and they are going to begin to use it as much more of a political weapon. They are going to use it as the ultimate example of state rights. And whenever their state doesn't like something, you know how normally laws are passed by Congress through a voting compromise problem? Eventually, there are going to be people who basically begin to argue. If there is a law that we do not like, for example, a protective tariff, you could void it. Let's say there's a law like fugitive slaves must be returned. You could void it. For those of you who do not know, dead serious. About 7 years ago, there was a group of people in Texas who proposed the voiding of what? Healthcare. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. There was a group of people in the state of Texas that actually brought up a resolution to propose the nullification of Obamacare in the state of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem with something like that is each and every state could simply, we would have completely divided. I do not want to get anybody too excited. The bill only had like 5,000 or 6,000 signatures. It never went anywhere. It was never seriously looked at. But it's the idea that under nullification, states would be, again, very independent. Last item is the election of 1800. Again, when you look at Kentucky and Virginia, you need to understand the sedition with the violation of the First Amendment. And you need to understand, when we bring up Kentucky and Virginia, it's nullification, 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 nullification. Election of 1800, it is Adams, Pinckney, and Jay. The Democratic Republicans are Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Ladies and gentlemen, once again I want to remind you, per the original Constitution, everybody runs for president. The electors actually cast 2 votes. Both of the votes actually are for the President of the United States. Whoever gets the most votes is president, and the runner-up becomes the vice president. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an election, and here's the big item. We vote, and the big key item is Thomas Jefferson gets 73 votes, and Aaron Burr gets 73 votes. Folks, in the election of 1800, there's a tie. If you wanted to argue, you could also argue that there was a change in political party. For the first time, we are going to shift. We will not have a Federalist president. We will have a Democratic Republican. What is the main item in the election of 1800? We have a tie. And I am very, very sorry. If you go back to the Constitution, you look at the House and the Senate. Under the House of Representatives, one of their powers is they, in the very rare case, in fact, in the history of the United States, is it only happened twice, in the case of a tie or no majority, the House of Representatives chooses the president. So, ladies and gentlemen, the election of 1800, the President of the United States, Jefferson or Burr, will be determined by the House. Where is the controversy, the problem? Generally speaking, everybody pretty much knows who was the real candidate here. Jefferson. Burr was being chosen as a vice president. Under the law, does that mean anything? Not one thing. For those of you who are looking, the controversy, the House of Representatives was controlled by Federalists. For those of you who don't get it, the president is going to be a Democratic Republican. The House, which is largely Federalist, gets to pick the winner. So if you are a Federalist, do you want to pick the more strong, dynamic man, or do you want to pick a weaker man? Do you want to pick a man who might have less axe to grind? So, ladies and gentlemen, in the election of 1800, there's going to be a huge controversy. Most Democratic Republicans go to Aaron Burr and they actually request him to do what? Step down. Acknowledge I should be vice president. But if you're Aaron Burr, you are literally a vote from being President of the United States. Many people argue this is where we first begin to see the Aaron Burr image. Aaron Burr refuses. He says, I'm supposed to be president. They go to the House. Here's the crazy part. The two men go to the House, and guess who shows up? Ladies and gentlemen, Hamilton's not a congressman. He's the leader of the Federalist Party. He was the Secretary of the Treasury. He shows up, and guess what? Alexander Hamilton stands before the United States Senate. The Senate had been divided and debating and angry for weeks. Hamilton stands before them and publicly endorses Thomas Jefferson. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexander Hamilton says, I don't always agree with him. I don't necessarily think that his ideas make sense. But Thomas Jefferson is a hardworking, honorable, ethical man. He will do everything in his power to help the United States. A few seconds later, Alec Hamilton, who's from New York, Aaron Burr was from New York. Alexander Hamilton very, very bluntly says, Aaron Burr is a dirty, rotten scoundrel. He's a cheater. He's a crook. He's a two-bit fraud. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Jefferson will become the president. Aaron Burr does become the vice president. This also begins to create a rift between Hamilton and Burr begin to hate each other. They will hate each other. For those of you who don't know what happens, there's a problem coming. For those of you wondering why on earth would the all-powerful Hamilton do this, the general belief is Hamilton went to the two men and asked them about certain things. Aaron Burr, in his mind, was a cocky, arrogant, probably swear word. And Thomas Jefferson was a politician. What was the number one thing Hamilton cared about? That the financial programs, the National Bank, the redemption would not be altered. Hamilton's financial stability would not be erased. Thomas Jefferson becomes president, and he promised to work with the Federalist Party, and he promised to not touch Hamilton's financial plan. So you have two different ways to look at this. One, Alexander Hamilton believed that Jefferson was a better candidate. He despised Aaron Burr. Or two, Alexander Hamilton made an agreement with Alexander Hamilton made an agreement with Jefferson. He then encouraged people to support Jefferson, and then Jefferson did not change. He did not attack the Hamilton financial system.